In tonight's Dorchester segment, the news is dominated by this week's primary election. To share some results and analysis is the managing editor and publisher of the Dorchester Reporter, Bill Forry. Thank you very much for being with us, Bill.
Thanks, Chris. Great to be back with you.
Yeah, good to see you again as well. I want to ask you about, first of all, the primary result in Dorchester. Everybody knew going into it that there was going to be a new state rep in the 12th Suffolk District, once represented by your wife, Linda Dorsina Forry. Tell us a little bit about the district and the result.
Sure. So this is a Boston and Milton seat. It includes, I think there are 15 precincts in the district. 2 of them are in Milton, and the rest of them are in Boston, and specifically in part of Hyde Park, parts of Mattapan, and parts of Dorchester, pretty much along the Neponset River. So it's a very diverse district. It's centered really in Mattapan. It's the heaviest concentration of voters is in Ward 17 and in Ward 18. And so it's become a seat that should be and in modern times now, I think will be mainly held by a person of color, a Black person, somebody of African ancestry. And so what was interesting in this race was Dan Cullinane, who is a white state representative elected this year, back in January, actually not to run for re-election. It opened up the opportunity for a rare open seat in the state legislature, and 4 candidates emerged in the COVID period, basically in March, to attempt to make the ballot and to get on the ballot. One of them is Cam Charbonnier, who appeared on the ballot on Tuesday and in the mail vote, but Cam had actually suspended his candidacy back in July. Really a reaction to the national change and the national movement around Black Lives Matter, the post-George Floyd protests, and Cam demurred. He decided that this is not his time to run. He's a white candidate, I think a very capable and attractive candidate, but he decided that, look, this is really a seat that is centered in the Black community. He recognized that and decided to suspend his candidacy. However, he did remain on the ballot on Tuesday alongside 3 other candidates, all Black candidates. Jovan Lissette, who has run twice before and lost to Dan Cullinane. He is an attorney from Mattapan. Stephanie Everett, who's also an attorney from Mattapan, who has run before for the seat unsuccessfully. And a new face, Brandy Fluker Oakley, who won on Tuesday, Chris. Brandy Fluker Oakley is also an attorney, born and raised in Mattapan and Dorchester. A very capable advocate for education reform. It was known to a lot of the delegation in the State House already as a very capable person. And that came through in this election. She was successful on Tuesday with about 39% of the vote in that 4-person field. She won the majority of precincts in Boston. Jovan Lissette, who again has run twice before and did very well against Dan Cullinane in the last election in 2018. He won 5 precincts on Tuesday. That was down from 8 precincts that he won against Cullinane. Fluker Oakley won all those other places. She won in Mattapan, she won in Hyde Park, she swept in Dorchester, and critically, she won both precincts in Milton on Tuesday. And what I think Fluker Oakley really stood out in this very strange election cycle, because she dominated with fundraising, Chris. She raised somewhere around $80,000 in this cycle, doubling any amount raised by other candidates who were still in the race. And she was able to use that to great effect, specifically with mailing. She did. She flooded mailboxes. I live in the district, so I got all of her mail. These are all mailers for Fluker Oakley, who you can see there. Very effective mail campaign. She was also able to reach voters digitally and on the phones. That's what a well-funded campaign can do. And in this period, particularly with a lot of mail-in vote, a lot of early vote, I think it was critical to do that. The other candidates weren't able to get mail, weren't able to get voter contact to any extent like she did. There was 1 or 2 pieces.
Right? I saw her face on Bill. I mean, it just grabbed my attention.
Yeah, she did a great job. her campaign, I thought was very well run, and it showed it. I think this race was kind of locked in a few weeks ago because of early voting, because of the mail-in vote, which was driven mainly by the U.S. Senate race. But this race also saw a strong turnout, and she will be the next state representative, because there is no contest in November. She will appear as the Democratic nominee without any opposition. So Brandy Fluker Oakley will be the next state rep come January.
At least before the campaign, Cam Charbonnier worked in City Hall. He had a lot of support from people in City Hall, even if it was just individual support, nothing dictated by the mayor. But him running on the ballot in a race like this at a time like this, couldn't that have been sort of a problematic optic for the mayor?
Well, I think so, and I think Cam, to his credit, recognized that. Eventually, he's a strong candidate. He would have won. Clearly, he would have won in his home base in 16 and in 17. He actually got about 8% of the vote, roughly 600 or 700 votes on Tuesday without campaigning. And I think he distinguished himself in the way he exited the race. I think he earned a lot of praise for it, and deservedly so. He came out and endorsed Stephanie Everett, by the way, when he left the race. And for Stephanie Everett, this is the fourth time now she's mounted a campaign and not been successful. Very disappointing finish for her and her team. And at the same time, it was great to have a competitive election with at least three very strong candidates and people who were, I think, distinguished themselves in the way they comported themselves and the way they ran their races.
Bill, turning to the Markey Kennedy race, Markey did even better in Boston than he did statewide. What did you see about the vote in Dorchester that looked interesting?
Yeah, so Dorchester was not Markey country, so to speak. Boston was. Markey won Boston by about 18 points, which was a big surprise to me. I didn't think that it would be anywhere near as big of a margin for either one of them. I thought, given Kennedy's performance in Dorchester and Mattapan, that he would have done better citywide, and he didn't. But in Dorchester, in particular, Kennedy won Dorchester. He won by about 4 points, roughly 52 to 48 by my count. I believe there are 63 precincts in Dorchester, and Kennedy won the lion's share of them. He won all of Ward 14, Big, which is a predominantly black ward, in through the Franklin Field corridor down into Mattapan. He won Ward 17, although it was closer there. Ed Markey won several precincts in Ward 17 that are voter rich, including my precinct in Lower Mills. And Ed Markey won Ward 16, which includes Neponset. It also includes St. Mark's area. It includes Fields Corner. He swept Ward 16 and only lost one precinct to Kennedy. Kennedy won at Florian Hall 1612, which is a very conservative precinct within Ward 16, predominantly white precinct. But Kennedy did extraordinarily well in communities of color, especially in Mattapan. He blew the doors off at the Mildred Ave Community Center, for example, in Mattapan, which includes Dorchester and Mattapan precincts. Kennedy, just piled on vote there. And he did so in Ward 14. He won in Ward 15. The two of them split in Ward 13, which includes Upham's Corner and the Dudley Triangle, and Savin Hill. So Markey won in Savin Hill, Kennedy won in Upham's Corner, and did so convincingly. So he acquitted himself well. And I think the Markey folks, they obviously had a huge victory on Tuesday statewide and in Boston. They're going to have to look really at, Markey's going to have to look at, where he needs to improve. That's a clear indicator that black voters in particular were looking for somebody else. And it may have been because it was a Kennedy, and Kennedy made a very strong appeal in Boston through surrogates like Steve Tompkins. There were other people of color who were very strong. Tito Jackson was a huge advocate for Kennedy. I think that resonated, but also, he's a Kennedy, and the family name rings out. So I do think Markey will have to come back and look, having now won, say, what can I do better in not only in Boston, but other gateway cities where Kennedy really did well.
You mentioned the Kennedy advantage, but what about the possibility of a backlash around what happened between Markey and the DJ Henry family?
Yeah, I think that certainly raised eyebrows, and the Henry family is so well respected, not only obviously among black voters, but all of people like me who are allied, and that family's story is heartrending. I hope that that Senator Markey makes that right and comes to that family's aid in a more forceful way. I think that issue, it certainly didn't upend his campaign, but it's something that needs to be addressed.
Even if it didn't hurt Markey among white progressives. I want to turn to one other topic, not election this time. A big turnout for a party on Talbot Avenue last weekend. The Black Boston COVID-19 Coalition calls it a two-day party. Thousands of people, loud music with speakers, people smoking marijuana, drinking beer. I mean, it sounds like it could have been a big spreader for COVID-19. But what about that?
Yes, this was last weekend, Chris, on the weekend that is typically reserved for Juve and the Carnival, which obviously is a huge party over 2 days in Dorchester and in Mattapan, centered around Franklin Field, Franklin Park, into Dudley. This particular event last weekend on Saturday night into Sunday included thousands of people on the streets, very much like Juve. Kind of a rolling party on Talbot, on Blue Hill Ave. Unfortunately, it was a terrible idea to hold it in the first place, given the pandemic. People were in close quarters without masks, partying in the street, as you mentioned, drinking, smoking, which in past years is what happens. I mean, it's part of the traditional celebration of Carnival. But this year was a bad idea. Carnival was canceled. It wasn't supposed to be anything like this happening. It seemed that this happened in a more, organic way through social media, and it was a very young crowd. Unfortunately, it also was punctuated by violence. There was a shooting at Blue Hill Avenue near Ellington Street. The person was badly injured. Police had a very difficult time responding because of the crowd. It was a mess. There is going to be a press conference later today. As you mentioned, the Black COVID-19 Task Force, led by people like Louis Elisa, are really speaking out, and they want to call attention to the event and really discourage people from doing it again. Obviously, we're running into the Labor Day weekend. There's likely to be gatherings and outdoor gatherings. Hopefully, that people keep it to a minimum. But big crowds like this just shouldn't be happening. And it was a really unfortunate situation. And the concern now is that it could have been a super spreader event, as it's called. We'll have to wait and see on that.
Finally, for people who want to keep posted, where can they find that online, Bill?
Sure. All of our stories are available in our print edition, which is in circulation across Dorchester and Mattapan right now. And you can read us online at .news.com.
Right. Thank you very much for joining us and taking the time.
Great to be here. Thanks, Chris.